If you go to work and you've got projects you're working on that you're excited about, especially if the project was your idea, it's very different than going into work to fill out a list of tasks that you've been given by somebody else or they're just checking off. And that right there is the difference between conventional education and Montessori. So which would you prefer to spend your time with? And which one's going to bring out the best in you? And which one are you going to put the most effort into?
One of the things that comes for me when you were just speaking, the joy that the child has for themselves, about their community, about learning, that is developed in a Montessori classroom, or it's allowed. And allowed is not probably the word that I want to use, but it fosters that.
Yes.
So Montessori classroom is like a workplace in action, or these busy bees at work. And what are some of the ways Montessori classrooms offer inclusion? Because we have this notion of children and bullying, but we can see completely different aspects in a classroom.
I think children do, if the environment is positive and if the adults in the room are positive and modeling very positive and supportive behavior, I think that children work things out between themselves much better when they're left to do so. And they really do start to respond to what feels good with someone else and what doesn't. They work out their social issues and they accommodate each other and support each other and help each other in a much more natural way. As you say, I think it's very much a part of human nature. Maria Montessori, I've noticed when I've read her work, she often quotes William James. I think it's William James, an early psychologist or philosopher. And he was perhaps one of the first positive psychology writers. And I think and Rousseau was a little bit this way too. I think that Maria Montessori really saw human beings are basically good. And that might have come a little bit from her experiences, her positive experiences with religion, that human beings are basically good and that we need to foster those behaviors and that nature rather than punish and, be punitive with children to get them to behave well. In terms of inclusion, in terms of their joy, I think when they're able to live in a positive environment, you see a lot of really good things come out of them. Also, you see these spontaneous moments of a child just sort of, skipping across the room on their way to get their work, or singing to themselves, or just, looking happy. It always amazed me when we'd have a vacation from the school. One of the things we do at Forest Bluff School is the head of school traditionally opens the door in the morning to let everybody in. We try to let the teachers get ready in their classrooms up to the last minute. And then we go and open the doors. And the children just practically run down the hallway. They're so enthusiastic about coming into the building and getting to their classroom and getting right to work, whether they're, really little or an adolescent. And it is really amazing because you think about, I remember going to school and you've got your backpack and you're sort of trudging along and you're looking forward to seeing your friends, but you weren't that excited about the day, the whole day. Montessori children are excited about their day because it's their day. It's their work. They have something in mind that they want to do. And you think of us as adults, sometimes they'll explain to parents, it's a little bit like, if you go to work and you've got projects you're working on that you're excited about, especially if the project was your idea, it's very different than going into work to fill out a list of tasks that you've been given by somebody else or they're just checking off. And that right there is the difference between conventional education and Montessori. So which would you prefer to spend your time with? And which one's going to bring out the best in you? And which one are you going to put the most effort into?
One of the unique aspects of a Montessori program you and I were speaking about earlier is that each environment is set up for the needs of that particular age group. And you just spoke about the elementary child, the adolescent child. Montessori is not just, in some countries speaking, Montessori means for very young children, but Montessori goes all the way up to high school. And, it's a lifelong learning. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how these environments are a little bit different?
Yes, it is really one of the greatest gifts, I think, that Maria Montessori gave us, was to point out the differences in these stages of development. The children need different things at different stages. So in the period between birth up to age 6, it's a stage of the child forming themselves as a child. So it's kind of the foundation of your life. And we know that rapid brain development is happening. Rapid physical development is happening. It's a vulnerable time. Because of that, children tend to get sick a lot when they're very young and build up their immune systems. And so the environment that's suitable for them is one that helps them to develop their independence, their autonomy, their ability to do things for themselves, their physical movement, developing hand-eye coordination, their ability to communicate, so language, lots of vocabulary acquisition during those years. So you're going to see an environment that encourages children to develop their ability to concentrate and focus, be able to focus a little bit on themselves. And that's not what it would appear to be if you walked into a Montessori classroom, because all the children are interacting and they're children 3 years of age in the same classroom. So 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, sometimes 6-year-olds as well in the same classroom. So you see all that happening, but you'll see these individual tables and rugs where children are really working on their own work for the most part. As they get older and they're 5 and 6, they start to do some work together, but usually an adult is there to guide them on how you do this. Around age 6, Montessori saw some dramatic changes happen. Physical changes and emotional, mental, and social changes at the same time. So children tend to lose their teeth. Their hair thins out. They lose some of that baby fat. Their limbs get longer. They don't get sick as often. They kind of develop a toughness about them. They become almost obsessed with other people. They're not so interested in themselves anymore in their own project. They want to work with other people. And if you remember being in elementary school, you remember you loved being on the bus or at lunch or recess when you could talk with your friends. And this is a natural urge that Maria Montessori recognized and thought, okay, there must be some natural reason for this. There must be some learning purpose to this characteristic. So instead of fighting it, let's encourage the children to work together and help them learn to collaborate through working together and learn about social life and learn about morals and how we should treat each other and decorum and so on with each other. So in elementary classroom, ages 6 to 12, you're going to see tables that have, 4 to 6 children can sit at a table together. You're going to see them doing projects where these big pieces of paper laid out all the way across the floor, and they've got these big long-term projects going on together. They're drawing and they're writing, they're bringing in all of the materials they need to do a project. They're getting them from different places. So they're learning to be resourceful. Whereas the younger children have a tray that has everything you need to do an activity right there on it. So they can focus and they can understand the process and the sequence. These children now they understand that they can be internally organized. So now they need the opportunity to find things. I've got to go get the scissors. I want these colored pencils. I'm going to get this material. I'm going to get this friend. I'm going to go get these books for this. And they can start to synthesize information in their minds. So it's a much more abstract way of learning, but they're still using materials to build towards that abstraction. You're going to hear more talking in an elementary classroom. You're going to see a different energy level. It just feels very different. It was fun for me because I taught primary 3 to 6-year-olds and then 6 to 9-year-olds, and going back and forth between the two rooms. It's just dramatic, very quiet with the younger ones. They're concentrating. The older ones can concentrate and have a lot going on at the same time. Around age 12, And these aren't exact ages, but these stages that every child goes through this transformation, basically around age 12, where their bodies are changing in obvious ways. We start to see adolescent puberty happening. They tend to be more emotional. They tend to get sick more often again, the way the very, very young children do. And Montessori explained this as the child has built a child, and now the rug is kind of pulled out from underneath them. They now have to start all over, not completely over, but they really need to start over and build an adult. And when you think of it that way, it really helps you to understand why middle school is such a tender and vulnerable stage of life. And they need a lot of support again, just like they did when they were an infant. It just looks very different now. The adolescent is going to have an environment that is very nurturing, supportive. The model that we have taken at our school is a smaller group, actually, so that there's more adult attention. They can meet privately with their teachers and be part of a group. It's almost like their tribe, their group of students. They travel together. They go out into the adult world. They need to be welcomed to the adult world and to adult tasks and be honored and treated with dignity as young adults. So have the support, but also the freedoms and invitation to do adult-like work out in the world. So you should see, actually, contrary to what we do in our culture, a slight easing up of the academic pressures because they need a little time. Their minds don't work as well, actually. Their brains are changing so rapidly. It's very difficult, again, to concentrate. They're more self-centered. They think everyone's looking at me. Everyone's looking at my pimple. They're having really strong feelings. It's a time for helping them, inviting them to express themselves through poetry and art and drama. And coming into the adult world, they still need to be doing their math and language and science and so on. But we want to ease up just a little on the sense of pressure with that and allow for time for this other development to happen. And then you get the whole child being supported, and you actually see that they have more energy and ability to concentrate on the academics because they can go do some physical work, maybe cook for the class, do something else, and then come back to the academic work. So those are some of the environments you're going to see and the differences between them. As the adolescents get older and they become more stable and more outgoing and more adult-like, we want to open up, those high schools, open them up to getting them out more and more into internships, apprenticeships, doing more adult work. For college age, for university age, Maria Montessori really seemed to feel that the way we have university is very suitable, that young people seem to be able to make their own decisions, to learn more abstractly and listen to a lecture, and seem to be well satisfied in that kind of environment. Those are what Montessori referred to as the 4 planes of development, the ages 0 to 6, young childhood, 6 to 12, childhood, 12 to 18, adolescence, and 18 to 24, young adulthood. With maturity, she believed being reached at around age 24, which is fascinating because now that we have MRIs and we know more about how our brains develop and so on, we see that in your mid-20s is basically when we mature into adults. So she saw a lot of these characteristics and changes and needs in these stages just by observing, which is pretty incredible, not by doing research and not by seeing inside people's brains, but it'll be interesting to watch as science keeps revealing that these things really do happen. So those are the environments.